Hello, Cincinnati. Welcome back to another episode of Cincinnati Soccer Talk. My name's Brian. I'm here. I'm back. It's been a couple weeks. I had some all-stars. I had some all-stars filling in the last couple weeks for me with Coach and Jason, but it is so good to be back tonight talking about another FC Cincinnati win this season, this time over the New York Red Bull. Let's bring in our other host tonight. We're going to get into this pretty quickly here. Coach, welcome back, and thanks for hosting a couple weeks ago, man. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, my best as Justin Blair is already hitting the sauce. He's drinking apparently, if you see him in the chat there. But we're not there yet. Anyway, happy to be here. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah. And I guess I gotta teach you the music buttons at the beginning of the show.
Yes,
Is that right?
that is a key part of hosting. Nobody ever taught me, because on Talking Tactics, we never went live unless we had a producer like Sub sitting in the back room helping us.
There you go. It's easy enough. We'll get you caught up. And Nathan, welcome back, man. It's been a while since you've been on. How you doing?
Yeah, good. No, it's great to be back, and it's a good day to be a fan of the best professional sports team in the state of Ohio.
There you go.
The FC.
There you go. The FC Cincinnati. How about that? We're going to get into the game recap. We've got some FC Cincinnati news, FCC2 news here in just a moment, but we do want to thank Apollo Home, who wants to remind you that during this weird in-between season of it's not summer, but it kind of still feels like it, now's the perfect time to get your HVAC system checked out before the cold winter weather is here. They're bringing back the $29 coupon for CST listeners for your preseason furnace tune-up. The preseason threw me off there. I'm like, wait, we're in the postseason. Preseason furnace tune-up. And as always, keep them in mind for any electrical or plumbing need. Give them a call, send them a text, or schedule online at apollohome.com. With that being said, y'all, we're going to get into our best and worst. Coach, I'm going to let you kick it off.
Yeah, for my best, I'm going to go with FCC2 making the playoffs, because when I started checking back in with this team like a month ago, they looked well out of contention. And then it's like, oh, well, if they win every game remaining, no draws, win out, and get a little bit of help, they can make the playoffs. And so I started kind of tracking what's going on. I was able to tune in and watch a couple of those games, and guys that we were hoping to see more with the first team. But when they're not with the first team, you expect them to go dominate at the CC2 level, and Bomadem, Chirilla, Dado showing up big and leading the FCC2 team into the playoffs. So, good for those guys. Hopefully it'll be a good experience for them. My worst is FC Cincinnati, just the first team struggling to find that balance between offense and defense. It seems like lately, which we'll talk about more later, the team either shuts up shop and doesn't give up any goals, but also only scores one or doesn't score, or they create up a bunch of chances, sometimes score, sometimes don't, but also give up loads of chances. So I just want to see a little bit of balance. Can this team both attack and defend? Who knows?
Who knows? We know they can do one or the other very well. We'd like to see them do it both, right? As you just mentioned in your worst. Nathan, man, you always bring the heat with your best and worst when you get on the show. So I'm expecting big things from you here. Go for it.
Yeah, I'm going to start with my worst this week. I feel like it's an obvious one, but Philadelphia does clinch the Supporters' Shield this week with their win over New York. And it just hurts a little more after last week, after surrendering that late goal to Orlando, which you don't give that up in stoppage time. It, pushes it to match day 34. And, always love to see those races come down to that. And, and you think about all the times we drop points throughout the year. And so that one hurts a little bit, but I mean, hats off to Philly. I mean, that's a great program. They developed a lot of talent here, and they'll be successful, but still got a shot at the 2 seed here. And you've clinched a home playoff game this week. So that's exciting. And you did that on the road with a clean sheet without Matt Miazga. That's my transition to my best now, is you got a clean sheet on the road with no Matt Miazga, no Roman Celentano. And I was looking back through the score lines. That was our first clean sheet since July at Miami at Chase Stadium. So Evan Loro now, he's 3-0-1 with 4 goals allowed in his 4 MLS starts, right? I mean, that's big for him to get the clean sheet against a Red Bulls team that, is pressing and trying to beat in transition and create those opportunities.
Yeah. Good for Loro, right? Like you'd love to see a backup keeper come in and hold his ground, do well, come out with a clean sheet finally. But he's played really well in his last couple matches. I know you guys have talked about that in the last couple shows. And before I get into my best and worst, can I just say, like, obviously I'm a biased fan, but if I were a non-biased fan, how about Philly winning the Supporter Shield when nobody was like, they weren't even in the conversation. Like they might miss the playoffs this year. At the beginning of the season was what we were all talking about. And they come away on top, which is quite a story that I don't want to talk much more about other than just to acknowledge it and say, well done, Philly, for turning that around. I'll say this. I'm going to take, the really low hanging fruit here. And I'm going to say Kevin Denke's goal. And I've even got a little sound effect here. There it goes. Kevin Denke's bomb from deep was just incredible. And the whole time I'm screaming, pass it to Ender, pass it to Ender. He's wide open. And he goes, no, I got this from 30, 35 yards out. What a killer goal on that one. So good to see him back on the score sheet after a couple weeks. And then my worst, I've got two this week. And it's Brenner being one of them, and not Brenner himself, but he just seemed like he disappeared for big chunks of this match. And I went back and I looked at the stats. He had 22 touches on the ball, which I didn't go back and look at previous, games that he's played and how many touches that he normally gets. But I looked around the field at other players in this particular match, FC Cincinnati players and New York Red Bull players. And he was one of the fewest attacking players. He was one of the attacking players with some of the fewest touches on the ball. Actually, I think he was the fewest touches on the ball of any attacking player on the field that played more than 4 minutes at the end of the match. Right? Just felt like he disappeared, and there's reasons for that. Maybe we'll talk about as we go in the show. And then my honorable mention, which maybe we'll talk about later too, is Echenike. Got a ton of balls, and it was attacking well down the right side. But man, you're so close. Like you talk about, you want to see a player turn the corner, like and hit his stride and get better. But like, I just wanted to see him literally turn the corner around that left back. Like he got the ball down the sideline. He was streaky. He had the guy beat. And every time he cut it back. I just want to see him get in the box, take a shot, get around the guy, pop a crossover to Kevin Denke or somebody. Like, maybe he was coached to do that, which we've talked a little bit pre-show and we'll get into later on. But gosh, man, I coach high school soccer, and I'm like, I tell our guys every time, like, you beat that guy, you get in the box. I don't care who else is there. You beat the guy, you get in the box. He's going to knock you down. You're going to get a shot, maybe a cross, whatever. Just do it. And he didn't. So I'll get off my horse on that one because we'll talk about that again later on in the show. We've got a couple best and worst here in the chat. We'll start with Rupesh. Best is he only saw the first half, and then worst was injuries. Yep, and we'll talk about that here in just a minute. Jose says Powell with another strong game. An honorable mention for KD for his control, dribbling, and goal. I got to give it up to KD for that touch too. Goal aside, that one touch to beat the defender at midfield was beautiful. And then worst, Evander with his bad passing, an honorable mention to lack of killer instinct, which we've talked over and over about that killer instinct. The Evander thing, I don't know. We'll talk more about it as we go. Jay Yates is in the chat. Welcome back, Jay. Clean sheet despite some shaky giveaways, especially on defense. And then worst, being officially eliminated from Supporters Shield contention. Yeah, lots of good ones there. And then Jay says Denke's goal celebration. That was perfect. How about that? The little cha-cha or whatever he was doing out there on the field. Lovely.
I think he was tucking his shirt in, Brian, and saying, I'm not taking it off. It's staying on because the yellow cards. But, we'll talk about that later, too.
See, I didn't catch that. I did see, like, man, he is tucking his shirt in deep on this one, but I didn't make the connection. How about that?
Yeah. He's just doing a Elvis Powell impression. It's okay.
There you go. Hey, before we get into the game tonight, we've got some FCC news to share. FCC is, the 11 road wins this season, the only team in the post-shootout era to do it in back-to-back seasons, actually to do it twice. They're the only, I think, the third team that has done it, and they've done it twice now. So how about that? This Road Warrior team. Now, we had a question about this, Coach. This one goal win, the flaw that we always talk about, is that what gives them this ability to win tight games on the road?
Yeah, I mean, like, in my opinion, like I always say, you can't tell what Pat Noonan is actually telling them to do other than what we can see and guess at. But it sure seems like one of the recipes that like has been time tested in MLS is to, when you go on the road, to keep it tight, force the home team to come at you, make the home crowd start to get nervy because their team's not generating chances. And then try to get a goal, maybe like a smash and grab type of win. And teams do that with pretty regular success. Now, usually you like your team, if you're one of the best teams in the league, to not necessarily do that, especially against teams who are not making the playoffs. But I do think you can look at this and say the same flaw that makes it so they never put teams away, that killer instinct that we hear Jose and others talking about, could also be the reason why they are so good on the road, because they don't give too much away down the stretch. Like I said, I would not prefer that. I think that you go out and dominate teams when you can, but I certainly understand it. And I think obviously Pat Noonan has had enough success with it to where we at least have to give him a little bit of credit for that aspect of things.
Yeah. My question to that is, and Nathan, I'll have you address it. Like, we call it a flaw at home, like we're only winning by one goal and whatever, but it feels like maybe we call it grit on the road. Like, man, they dug in and it was the same result either place. But we call it grit when they're away from home, chip on your shoulder, whatever you want to call it, came away with a 1-goal win, right? Nathan, what your thoughts on that question there?
Yeah, well, I mean, we call it a flaw, right? These 1-goal victories. But I mean, even the national pundits and national media, you look at MLS 360, you look at the pregame shows, it's talked about a lot. This has kind of been an identity of the team, regardless of where they play. It's actually a good point that you pointed out is they win by 1 goal, right? Even when you go up big, they typically blow 2-goal leads, right? They say it's the most dangerous lead in the sport, but you see that.
Yep.
But I mean, there's been some outliers, right? Portland, where they, went up large and still hang on. But I mean, just think about all the matches against Columbus, right? Against Miami. I mean, there's a handful. I mean, you could go down the litter list, right? Where you go up those leads and surrender it. I mean, the counterpoint to that is look at Orlando last week. Where they were just wishing for that second goal, and that would have put the game away, right? I mean, look at this past week, right? We were about 6 inches away there in that second half from dropping those 2 points in the 83rd minute, where Red Bull, they put it off the same right post twice. It just, I mean, to be honest, it feels like with the attacking prowess that we have, that we should be able to score multiple goals with consistency. But it just hasn't materialized. And I don't know if that's necessarily with this far into Pat Noonan's career here at FC Cincinnati. I don't know if we can necessarily call it so much a flaw anymore. I think it is to some degree a feature, right? And especially when you go on the road and grit out those wins, as you say.
Yeah, and I think the same aspect that allows you to hold on to those 1-goal leads when you're in a tough environment and only up by 1, that playing tight, not giving too much away, trying to really minimize turnovers, that is the same thing that allows you often when you're up by 2 or 3 to let the team back into it, right? Because you quit, you don't step on their throats like we talk about. You quit going for the goal. You kind of sit back a little bit more. You really play too tight and you play too afraid to make a mistake. And then what happens when you're playing afraid to make mistakes? Ironically, you make mistakes because you're not doing what got you to the 2 or 3 goal lead to begin with. So I do think I wouldn't call it a flaw, like a bug, because it is a feature, but I do think it's a feature that is tenuous. And it's like, as a coach, if you choose to coach that way, you have to really trust the nerve of your players and your veteran leadership to do that. And clearly it's bit Pat Noonan a couple times, but overall, if you take the whole big sample size, I think it's been good for him. So I doubt he'll go away from it.
Yeah. I'm picturing, like, you say this is the team's identity and that's what it has become. But I'm picturing like a coach at the beginning of season pumping his team up and like, hey, here we go, guys, we're going to win every game by 1 goal this season. Like, no more, no less. We're going to win by 1. That's going to be who we are. right? And it feels like that's what they've become. And halfway through the season, the commentators were saying this is who they are, and it's who they've continued to be. Obviously, I say that in jest, but man, that's what it feels like. Pat Noonan's like, hey guys, we're up 2. Let's let them go 1, and then we'll just hold the game from there. We've got Brian, got more.
Really quick, sorry. Can I address Rupesh's comment? Because there's this idea that if you're listening in, Rupesh is talking about underlying numbers that based on expected points, so expected goal differential, FCC is the luckiest team in the league. And the whole thing about expected goals and expected goal differential is that it's useful for what it is and for what it says. However, if like in this game, FC Cincinnati gave up 16 shots, it might still equal out to 1 XG or something more. But if all of those are like 0.05, 0.07 chances, or the majority of those, you could still look like your expected goal differential is low because you gave up more chances, but all your chances are poor. Similarly, if Kevin Denke in the 13th minute drills a shot that's a very low XG chance, but scores, you're not going to play the same way because you're up a goal. No teams play the exact same way. So that also flips things on its head. So I'm not disagreeing with Rupesh in that that expected goal differential does tell you some things. It's just not the whole story because game states matter. And if you have one low XG chance that goes in, it matters. And if you give up no chances a whole game, but then give up a 0.8 chance like we did to Orlando, where basically somebody at the back post just like puts it into an empty net, it looks like you gave up all of this XG when it was really just one chance that cost you. So just, underlying number is important, but not the whole story.
Yeah. I thought you meant this comment from Rupesh. Bradley Carnell, coach of the year.
Oh, don't get me started.
That's the only reason I saved that one. I wanted to throw that one up there just to see coach's response there.
I'll give you my 30-second push. Bradley Carnell does really good at getting his team to run through walls over and over and over. And that gives him a lot of success as teams try to adjust to that. But he's a one-trick pony, and eventually teams figure him out. Maybe they won't this year. Maybe Philly will go on to win everything. I don't think so, because I think when all you can do is play smash and grab soccer, long balls, and run through walls, I think eventually you hit that wall instead of running through it.
So coach is in favor of Bradley Carnell, coach of the year this year, but not next year, because he'll get figured out again like he did in St. Louis. A few more items of news on for FC Cincinnati. We've got injury report that Matt Miazga suffered another setback in training and is out another 3 to 4 weeks, which puts him, what's that, like maybe the second round of the playoffs, maybe late first round, depending on how late that goes.
Yeah, that first round stretches forever because if it goes to 3 games, or even if it doesn't go to 3 games, other squads do, and then there's the international break. So honestly, I think he'll be back by the second round easily should FC Cincinnati get there.
Yeah, the last day of the first round is Sunday, November 9th. And it starts on Friday, October 24th with the first round. The wild card matches are Wednesday, October 22nd. That best of 3 series that they've added really lengthens out the playoffs.
Yeah, it does, which I guess is good and bad, right? Like it gives him time to heal. But again, working him into matches after injury beginning this season it took a while, right? So who knows what he's going to be when he gets back. We got Luca Orshano going down with I haven't heard reports. It looked like a hammy in the game. I know he's been nursing some tenderness in the one. Is it the same one? What kind of shape is he going to be in as we go? Obi, we've heard, is full go, but has not. We got to work him in with some time, not maybe a full 90 right away. And then in other news, 7 FC Cincinnati players were named to their national teams, which was pretty cool. Kevin Denke, Stefan Torilla, Hadeb, Miles, obviously Kamara, Gidi, and Echenike all off to their national teams this week to play. So how about that? Cincinnati's a place where international players are developing and getting some time with their national teams. And Coach, you mentioned FCC2 news. They slid their way into the playoffs with a strong run here at the end of the season. And this Thursday is the draw for the MLS Next Pro playoffs, which is a pick your opponent draw. It's not a seeded draw where the higher seeded teams get to pick who they want to play. which we'll talk about that at the end of this show, that if we could pick FC Cincinnati's a senior team's matchup in the playoffs, who would we pick? We'll get there. Before we do, let's get into this last week's game against New York Red Bull. We've talked about the goal already a little bit, talked a little bit about Etched. Let's get into, Coach, you talked about this balance in your worst. So I want to bring that in because our conversation before the show, I was, griping about Etched, which I did a little bit earlier tonight too on the show live, not turning the corner, cutting the ball back. And you maybe had a different take on that than I did in my frustration. Talk a little bit about that.
I am frustrated with you with it as well. I just am putting it on Pat Noonan, and here's why. It looked to me the entire course of the game that Pat was really emphasizing his team's rest defense. What rest defense basically means is what defensive structure are you in while you have the ball, while your defense is resting, right? And what that means is, putting players in positions that if there is a turnover, you can't get countered easily. And so having a guy like Ender, if you really stretch him and say, go down the line and look for crosses, not only is he as a wing back getting out of position, but then you have your forwards and your midfielders busting it to get into the box. And then if that cross hits off the first defender, it's a transition the other way. And what's one thing you don't want to do with the Red Bulls is get into a track meet, because that's what they like. So I was frustrated because I still think Ender could have beat that guy and he should have done it more often. But it sure looked to me, because we've seen him in the past be more aggressive, that Pat must have talked to him before the game and said, hey, maybe at least for the beginning part of this game, play it a little bit safer. Don't get caught out. If you're not 100% sure that you can get the corner and have a target in the box, go ahead and step on it. I think that was a mistake because Red Bull's team speed on defense was not very good. There was a play in the 8th minute, guys, where he got the edge of his defender and it looked like he had a clear path to goal, and he cut it in onto his left and tried to hit a left-footed cross, which he's a right-footed player. And it just was like, I had no idea what was happening. It was so weird. It made me think it could not have been a player decision, but who knows?
But if you're going to get in a track meet, let's be honest, with New York Red Bull, and you've got Etched and you've got Powell, that's a track meet I'm going to run. I'm going to let those guys run, which that's one reason I didn't understand it. And I have, guys, I know you can't see this. I've got a spider coming down from my ceiling right in front of me. Okay.
Did he go to the end line?
Yeah. No, he met his ender. That was me. So, all right, we've got Ender. Maybe Coach Noonan is telling him don't get to the end line unless you can get there. So, okay, so that answers that. We talked a little bit. I want to bring Evander up because Jose mentioned him in his worst early on. And I'll be honest, I look at Evander's play and I thought, man, he just wasn't like himself this week. He just looked like he disappeared. That didn't disappear. He just wasn't making the connections, playing the ball through him. And then I looked at the stats, right? And the stats don't necessarily play that out. He had 85% on his passing. He hit 3 long balls. 2 of them were accurate and connected, 52 touches on the ball. But he lost possession 9 times. And maybe that's what I'm remembering from this game. Nathan, speak to what you saw in Evander's play this week. Did it feel like that to you, or was he more on the ball than I realized?
Yeah, see, that's exactly what I highlighted too watching this game was how many times he was dispossessed. And it wasn't just him too. I mean, Denke was dispossessed a few times. I mean, part of that's just the nature of playing Red Bull, I think, with the style that they play. I mean, he had a few opportunities. He was pretty limited in the attacking third. I think is a big part of that. But yeah, I think there's loss in possession may have made it worse than what it actually was. I mean, he's an MVP candidate. He's going to be fine moving forward, I would think. But yeah, as you were talking about, the stats don't necessarily indicate that he was terrible on the ball. But yeah, I think the limited opportunities in the attacking third and those losing possession, I think might have made it feel that way at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, he had a 17% possession loss ratio, which is pretty good for any player outside of, the center backs that you want that to be much lower. So like this notion that he was not had bad passing or something, I think is the perception. The idea is right. The perception is wrong. The idea is we're watching and we're saying Evander did not affect the game like we're used to seeing him. Well, what happened? You talked about him having 52 touches. Well, only 16% of those were in the attacking third. If you go back and look at his most effective games, normally it's like up near 40% of his touches in the attacking third. What happened was New York Red Bulls were compressing that middle so much that part of the strategy was dropping him way deep into that left half space. And he was doing a lot of good, simple things with the ball. So again, maybe a Pat Noonan thing. He wasn't turning and really looking to like push that ball forward or hit those really deft passes. There were a few times that he had a couple like great moves. We talked about before the show. There was one in the left corner where he did this cheeky little kind of like drag pass to Angle that sent him in. And then Angle crossed it to Brenner, who either whiffed right there at the near post or had Nealis barely touch it away from him, depending on who you ask. Right in the 23rd minute, he got on the half turn and dribbled like 60 yards and waited for the perfect time to dish wide to Kevin Denke. But Denke's touch was a little bit bad and it took him wide. And that was the chance that then Denke pulled it back to Buka and Buka lost the ball there. So it's like he did some Evander things, but when you only have 2 shot creating actions and 0 key passes, like all of us as fans of Evander, like he had a terrible game. And by his standards, at least on the offensive end, you can say that. But it wasn't because he was poor at passing or turning the ball over.
Yeah. Coach, let me ask you this question. It's something that just came to mind, right? Like as a coach yourself, I've not coached at that same level, but you have a player like Evander, right? I think what you're saying speaks to his coachability, right? If coach says, hey, I don't want you going forward. I want you to sit back, receive the ball in the defensive third. We'll go forward when we have opportunities, right? But if you got a guy like Evander, do you want to see him break away from that a little bit and say, you know what, I'm going to go impact this game in the way I know I can impact this game, even though coach has asked me to sit back a little bit? Like, you got a player like that on your squad. What are you asking of him if you're Pat Noonan, and what are you actually expecting him to do in those moments?
Yeah, so as a coach, one of the biggest things you want to guard against is giving your players the solutions on the field, because the beauty of soccer and the most brilliant players are the ones that solve things in real time and make the decisions that are right in the moment. So if you tell a guy, whenever you get the ball, I want you to do this, as a coach, you're messing up, because the time when he should zig, when everybody's expecting him to zag, that is going to be the time that a goal happens. So I hope to high heavens that Pat is not saying, I want you to just drop deep and not go forward. What I worry is that Pat is saying like, hey, go forward when it's there, but really be careful. And because the whole feeling around the team is we make mistakes and we get scored on and things are always one bad play from going south, that players play tight. And so Evander then is like that moment when it looks like it might be on, he's like, maybe not this time, maybe next time. And then the next time never comes. So I think some of that comes with being in the system for longer. I think some of that comes with having a stable back line behind you that you really trust. Like, let's say if it's Miazga and Robinson back there, and maybe Obi, guys like that you really trust, not some new kid Geedy who's been great, but he's just off the boat, as you might say, so some of that is trusting your teammates, having a guy ahead of you that you're going to pass to, that you know exactly where he's going to be. Some of that comes with that. So I'm not worried about Evander long term, but I do think it's on this coaching staff to tell the guys, like, yes, we want to be careful and we want to be defensively sound, good rest defense. That doesn't mean don't take chances, because you have to take chances to score.
Yeah. And, I don't want to get into it too much, but, another number 10 that used to play for FC Cincinnati was a guy that I think you couldn't do that with. You couldn't coach him to like, hey, sit back, take your chances when they're there. He's just going to take his chances. And maybe it's Noonan adjusting to a new number 10 this season that is, taking a little bit more instruction potentially from him. Maybe it's Evander getting used to a new system, playing that way. But I do want to see him take a little bit more chances, because as you said, when he gets the ball in the attacking third, things happen. But he's just had to drop in a little bit more in this last game. It looked like maybe he was asked to. I don't know. One thing as I observed the game, right, FC Cincinnati to me never looked like they were in control of this match. Like you go away and you don't want to lose a match away. You want to go for it. You want to win, right? And they did. Kevin Denke did that for us. We talked about his shot, but they never looked like they were in full control. Like, we want to keep possession and we're going to take it to you and we're going to hold the ball as long as we can till you make a mistake and then we're going to go forward. It's almost like they were letting New York kind of just do it. And they were playing, you talk about rest defense. They were just resting a lot is what it looked like, and letting New York pass around them. It looked like that to you, feel like that to you. Was that an intentional tactic, or is that just Cincinnati taking a break and saying we're going to save it for the playoffs?
I mean, it's Red Bull, right? Anytime you play Red Bull and you play this style, right, it's going to be a little bit different outside of the norm, right? Of course, like getting in the playoffs, that's a factor of it. But I think the final possession number is what, 65 to 35? I mean, it was pretty significant for Red Bull. That's not necessarily the game they want to play, right? And so might throw them off schedule a little bit. Yeah, I mean, it's Red Bull. I don't throw much into that. If it was against another opponent, maybe so. But anytime you play Red Bull in this style of offense, I mean, you can chalk up a lot to that.
Yeah, I think that when you go and you play against a team that wants to be in a rock fight, you can either arm your guys with rocks and you guys can throw rocks at each other and everybody's bloody, or you can bring a shield and a sword and you can slowly move forward with your shield and then use Kevin Denke to get the one stab in that counts.
Great analogy.
Right?
Great analogy.
You know, I'm being a little bit silly, but a common tactic for playing teams that want to just play against the ball, like just want to press you to death, like a Philadelphia, like a Red Bull, is to try to make them have the ball. You hear pundits talk about it all the time. You don't want to let Red Bull just play long and win second balls, and then you try to go fast and you turn it over, and then it's a track meet and it's not about speed. It's just about the endurance of up and down and up and down. That's what they want to do. It's, if you can't beat them with skill, then beat them by making the game messy and making it a game of endurance, right? FC Cincinnati came into this game clearly trying to say, like, no, we're not going to get into that. Even when FC Cincinnati broke the press, they would often step on the ball and bring it back. Like, we're not going to get in a track meet, which again, I'm not saying I necessarily agree, because you got to pick times to not do that. But it seemed clear that's what they were trying to do. And I think the idea overall, even if they were too dramatic with it, was right.
Yeah. Your analogy of the rock fight, man, I thought of a dodgeball game. Right. And, you know, you get down to the end, and it's boys against girls. Maybe there's only a couple girls and you're like, here, you throw the balls. I'll just let you have it and you throw it and we'll just dodge them and catch them and stay in the game. As you use that analogy, I thought, yeah, that is what it felt like a little bit. Like, we'll just give you the ball and then we'll take our chances.
Are you saying that the Red Bulls remind you of girls playing dodgeball? Is that? I
mean, I take it how you want, coach. Take it how you want, coach. And anybody out there that's listening, take it how you want. Let's talk about the sub patterns again, because that's been a consistent thing that we've talked about here. Noonan's played the starters till was at the 67th minute. We had our first sub with Jabari. Ayub Jabari comes in for Brenner, I believe. Is that right? Yeah. And there was talk of, why not Kevin Denke? Well, he's not playing the next game, so give him his run out. Maybe that's the thinking there. So, but that was our first sub, 67th minute. And then it was an attacking sub. And a little bit later on, was it 84th minute? Coach, you got the numbers there.
Yeah, 80th minute is when Ender came up hurt and Orishano came in. At the same time, Kai came in for Kevin Denke. And then in the 86th minute, where the defensive subs where Orishano had to be pulled out. And at the same time, Pat put in Anunga for Evander.
Okay, so, we've talked about these sub patterns. Like, do they make sense? Are we putting the right guys in at the right times to go steal a game, to go get a game, to hold on to a game? We saw some attacking subs, right? We've got Kai Kamara that came in. We saw Ayub Jabari come in. We saw Orishano come in. And unfortunately, like 4 minutes later or whatever it was, you said, pulls up with a hamstring. 1 minute later, pulls up with a hamstring and goes out right away. We had to shift to defensive posture, right? Maybe in that moment is the right thing to do. But are you sending Ayub Jabari in ahead of Kai Kamara, with 20 minutes left in a match, a veteran guy or a young guy that we've yet to see proven.
I want to hear Nathan's thoughts on this because as a coach, like I want to say put in Kai because he knows what he's doing out there and he will figure it out. But I also really like Jabari's raw measurables. Like he is fast, he is tall, and he is fun. So I don't know, Nathan, do you go for it with a Jabari or do you put in the veteran, the know-how in Kai?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I like Kai's presence out there. I think he's a physical presence, a veteran presence, and yeah, I value his ability out there. I know he hasn't scored a lot, but his work rate off the ball, especially for someone his age, is very good. And so obviously love to have that out there. I think it's more of a managing minutes for him. I mean, he's not a spring chicken, right? And so maybe the concern is you don't want to put him in for close to 25, 30 minutes. At that point, I think that might be part of it. Also, getting Jabari integrated in right before the playoffs, getting him more minutes with this squad. I will note one of the things that did stand out on FOTMob looking after the game. Jabari was the only person who was rated under a 7.1. He came in at 6.1, so it wasn't dreadful, right? But he was the lowest rated player on the team for the match. But yeah, and he gave up some opportunities. He could have played worse. He could have played a lot worse. But he's going to be important to stretch the legs of a lot of these guys as we go into this really long postseason format.
Yeah, I was leaning Kai, but I think you talked me into that with your point about integrating him into the team. I think you're exactly right. A guy like Jabari, when you look at what I talked about, how big and fast he is, and you even saw him win like a few defensive headers, and there was a moment where he burst through the back line on the left, but then took a heavy touch and then blasted his shot into the side netting. But you saw the acceleration in a guy that tall, 6'6". Getting a guy like that integrated, if you can, is going to do more for you down the stretch than having a Kai Kamara who can come in and hold the ball up a little more effectively. So I think you're probably right. That was an aggressive move, but maybe Pat is actually looking to the future. So good call there.
Yeah, but I say on the road too. I mean, in a supporter shield race, it is a bold move. I mean, that rocket in the side net gives you a lot of confidence too. It's just hopefully you could put him in positions to succeed, and eventually he'll find the back of the net.
Yeah, I want to wrap up that part of the conversation. I do want to mention Denke's yellow card here because we've got some comments. We were going to talk about it. Rupesh says he picked up a stupid yellow card. Absolutely. Jay Yates agreed. Even if you're positive the ball placement for the restart's wrong, you can't kick it away. Like that was just I joked about it earlier, right? The ball rolls half a ball length and he kicks it another half yard backwards. Like it's not even worth it at that point to even touch the ball. And he picks up a yellow card that gives him the suspension for the final game of the season. Not something you want to see in any of your players, but especially a guy, one of your scorers like Kevin Denke. Like, be smart, right? You've already gotten yellow cards for ripping your shirt off, right, all season, which again takes me back, right, to a celebration, tucking it in, keeping it on, and then you go and kick a ball away like that. Like, come on, man. And when they reset after next week, right, going into the playoffs, your cards, I think, is that the case? They don't matter or they don't count going into the playoffs. So anyway, just wanted to mention that, guys. We do want to thank our second half of the show sponsor, Beyond Exercise. They're a local physical therapy and fitness business that helps people stay active and injury-free. They've helped some of our local MLS Next Pro, and FCC Academy players with their health and performance needs. Check out their suite of services at gobeyondexercise.com. And with that, Coach, I want to pass it to you for our Talking Tactics segment.
Yeah, so we've touched around this idea of FC Cincinnati kind of playing a little passively, or you might say like a team like a Nashville that wants to sit back and absorb pressure and counter when it's on, but also that counter never really happened. So the question I asked myself while I watched this match back is, did FCC get outplayed and hold on for a win, or did they win a 1-goal game by design? And we already talked a little bit about, the rock fight analogy and when you play a team like New York Red Bull. Well, New York Red Bull want to score goals off of turnovers and transitions and set pieces. Well, their two chances of the game, the really only two chances, were Dylan Nealis in the 36th minute was a shot that was blocked, and Ender played a back pass to Alvis Powell in the corner to keep from just clearing it because they want to hold on to the ball. Powell doesn't hit his long ball right up the line, and it's a turnover. It creates a little moment of transition. The ball goes into the box for Forsberg. Forsberg is inside the box, so you can't tackle him, right? And he works a little combo with Choupo-Moting, who cuts the ball back across the box to Nealis. That's the one where Lucas Engel was there to block that shot. It was a good chance, and that right there already illustrates a little bit of the strategy. If an attacking threat was over there, a Mark Zook or even an Orishano, that guy might have been standing like at the midline by the time that shot happens, because as soon as Ender had the ball, he would have been releasing up the field. That's what we've seen over and over. But Engel was back basically on the goal line, ready for that. And then the second chance was Julian Hall, when he hit the post in the 83rd minute. I'm not counting the shot off the post before that, because it was a lucky seeing eye shot that like barely made it through, that Leroux probably would have saved if it was on goal, right? But that was right in the aftermath of a set piece. It was that lucky shot that found its way through, clanged off the post, and then Hadeb had kind of fell asleep on the rebound, and Hall went to put it in. But Hadeb was there enough, and Leroux sprawling, that forced him, and he put it off the post again. So only two chances, despite feeling like Red Bull had the ball the whole time. So I think really overall, Pat did a really good job to set his team up to mirror Red Bull, which is defend really narrowly and compactly and force a team to break you down. So sure, they ended the match with 65% possession and 16 shots, and that sounds terrible. But let me give you some numbers. Of their shots, only 12.5% of their shots were on target. They average 33% per game. So 1/3 of their shots usually are on target. They usually get good shots. They did not in this game. They average 0.11 XG per shot. FC Cincinnati only gave up 0.06 XG per shot. So nearly half. Again, just basically their chances were half as good as they typically are. They usually get about 3 shots per block, even less than that per 90, and FCC blocked 7 because they had numbers behind the ball. And this is all to not to mention what I talked about, whereas when you score in the 13th minute, because of game states, the other team is always going to have a little more possession than you'd expect and a few more shots than you'd expect. So I actually liked a lot of that. But the problem is there was a real lack of offense. And I talked about it a little bit already, that FCC was reluctant to push that ball forward when they won it. And I think a little bit it was by design. So often they'd win the ball back. They'd break out of that initial press, like Red Bull loses the ball and they swarm you to try to win it back right away. They would do really good to break out of that, usually by getting the ball to Evander because he's already back defensively. But then they would play it back again and slow it down. And I liked that they weren't just giving the ball back. But the problem was there were also times when they could have gone quickly and they didn't. And then you add that in with some really head-scratching moments from set pieces or set balls or nearly set balls, like passes back to Evan Leroux when he can just kind of dribble up the field and do what he wants. So often in those moments, I saw Lucas Engel take a few free kicks and Leroux just like booting the ball back to Red Bulls. And I did not understand. It was like, well, we don't want to try to build out against them. So we're just going to whack it long in those moments. But then in moments when we could transition, we'd step on the ball and pull it back. So there was like a real cognitive dissonance there. So we've seen this team throw a ton of bodies forward and have chances, but then also leak chances on the back end. That's what happened against Orlando, right? The XGs were for both teams were pretty high, just higher for Orlando. And we heard Pat talk about over the international break, like, man, we're really working on offensive play and creating chances because we've been struggling with that. We've also seen them, like in this game, shut up shop, defend hard, and not give up chances, but also not create any. And we actually heard Pat talk about in the pre-match interview for this, talk about defending. So the question is, can they find a balance going into the playoffs? Or are they going to continue to just look back at the last match, see what went wrong, and then try to solve that problem? And then really all that does is create a new problem in the match you're in for the next week's match to try to solve. Or can Pat actually look over this international break? What do we need to solve for the future, which is this balance? And can we get that going? And we're just going to have to wait and see.
Yeah. Good thoughts there, Coach. My only question, I guess, in all of that is, you talk about the balance or lack of balance. It's one or the other. The goal that Denke scored, though, was in transition. It was a moment that I think with it, Lucas Engel, I think, won the ball in the back, pushed it up to Brenner. Brenner pushes it straight across to Denke, who in one touch beats a defender completely, like just puts him on skates with one touch, dribbles him, and then gets downfield. We didn't have numbers. It was 2-on-2 at that point, and Ender's wide streaking down the right side. Denke, we know, chooses to keep it himself, and he puts a banger of a goal in, right? That ball, I don't know that I've seen a ball move as much as that ball moved with no spin, just knuckled into that upper corner. Was beautiful. But all the other moments that we had in transition with Ender breaking down the right that we've already talked about and him cutting it back, like I'd have to watch it back. I wasn't watching as closely now that we've talked about it. I want to go back and see, like, if he had gotten around that guy, did he have runners in the box? Because if he did, why not go for it? Like, we've got it in transition. That's how we scored our goal. Let's keep after it instead of pulling it back. Unless, again, if there weren't numbers, yeah, pull it back. Let's hold on to the ball, whatever. But it produced a goal for us once. Why did they not do it more that game?
Yeah, I mean, that is the question. And please don't hear me saying that I think this was a good strategy overall to not go.
Sure.
I think the point is you have, like, it was a good idea to come in with the idea that we're going to keep it tight and try to hit on the counter. But they did not execute it because they did not hit on the counter. And I think that early goal, coupled with this idea that the team plays tight because they're always constantly worried about giving up that 1 goal lead or a 2 goal lead when they have it. I think those two things thwart the team. You know, they had other minutes after that goal. In the 17th minute, I talked about the one where Engel got forward and crossed it for Brenner, who was on the doorstep. I talked about the 23rd minute when Evander got on the half turn and dribbled the length of the field and passed to Kevin Denke. So they did it a few more times. It just was not often enough. And you know, there were moments like in the 53rd minute where there should have been a glorious chance where the ball was won back and played into Kevin Denke, and he turned and played it through to Lucas Engel running up the left. And this is the one where Lucas Engel doesn't really shoot it or cross it. He kind of chops it and it just goes wide of the post. And you see Brenner like holding his head like, why didn't you put this on a platter for me? And so like there were moments, and if they even just take one more of those and play the same good defense, you win 2-0 and the other opponent didn't even really have any chances, you feel pretty good about it. So it's like, it's not this team isn't way far away from it. They just need to, if you're going to only score 1 of 5 chances, then you need to generate 10, right? So you either need to up that rate of scoring, you need to have a Lucas Engel actually do something with that chance in the 53rd minute, or you need to create more of those chances. Right now, I think Pat looks at his team and says, rightfully so in some ways, I have Denke, I have Evander, I have Brenner, and then add in some ancillary pieces like Echenike, Luca Orshano. Like, I should only need 5 chances to score 2 goals. And he's probably right. But then you have guys like Brenner missing shots on the doorstep. Maybe this all will click into place. Or maybe Pat needs to release the handbrake a little bit and say, okay, maybe I don't need to generate 20 chances, but maybe, 10 instead of 5 would be good.
But Nathan, if we put 2 goals in the back of the net and don't give up any, we lose our identity. We can't do that. No, Nathan, just open it up to you if you got any other thoughts in this segment on what Coach is talking about here in Talking Tactics.
Yeah, Coach is remarkably impressive. I love the Talking Tactics session every single week, even if I'm not on the show. I learned so much in the session. I can't disagree with anything he said, of course, there with that. Yeah, would love to see more chance creation, of course, but such is life, right? In FC Cincinnati world. We love it here. It's hard to complain about chance creation when you're second in the East. So,
and yet we do. And yet we do.
So spoiled here in Cincinnati.
So spoiled. Yeah. Let's move on. We talked about FCC2 and the MLS Next Pro draft, the pick your opponent draft this Thursday night. Catch it. It's fun to watch. The higher seeded teams get to pick the lower seeded teams. We did a bit of a pick your opponent poll on X today, and we've got some results to share. If you could pick FC Cincinnati's opponent in the playoffs, it depends, decision day, if FCC finishes second or third, and then what happens with the play-in game with potentially, it looks like Chicago and Columbus, who gets in, where, everything, where do the chips fall? Where do the rankings land? What's the table look like at the end? If you could pick who they played, here's the results from the poll just before our show went live tonight. FC Cincinnati land on Cincy Soccer Talk on X says the team that you would least want FC Cincinnati to play in the playoffs would be Columbus. The Columbus Crew we would least want to play in the best of 3 round one. And the team you most want to play, FCC land says, is Chicago. Now, gentlemen, I want you to make a case for why they're right or why they're wrong. And all 3 of us will make our case, and we can pick the same teams, different teams. But Nathan, I want you to go first.
The public is wrong. Terrible take. Give me Columbus round 1 right now. You're still haunted by the Eastern Conference, by the Eastern Conference final, right, from a few years ago. If you have the chance to knock out Columbus here at TQL Stadium, you take it. I know it's best of 3, but how many opportunities do you have to have a derby in the playoffs and you get a home game out of that? Obviously, game 2 is played up here in Columbus. It's a little closer to where I live, so it'd be great. I could attend that as well, selfishly, right? But if you have the chance to knock them out, knock them out. And there's no better time, right? They have not played well. I think you brought it up maybe earlier on the show, Brian, but they've only won 2 MLS matches since we blew that 2-goal lead in July to them. It was 4-2, right? So this is a perfect time to get the yellow and black. And you spring on them early, and it also gives you momentum, right? You get that extra hit of dopamine, that extra encouragement, right? As you go in, and you're probably taking on a Miami in the next round or something like that, right? And so you get that extra, you vanquish kind of your the things that have been haunting you in the past. I want them first. You can either take Chicago or Nashville too. I mean, either way, I probably want Chicago over Nashville. I definitely don't want Orlando. Orlando, they still lead the all-time series over us. They've played us well in recent series. And I think, quite frankly, they've underperformed the talent that they have on that team, and they've squandered some opportunities. They didn't squander it last week, right? But they have, right? I definitely do not want to see Orlando, because if we see Orlando, I bet that goes to 3 games.
Yeah. Coach, make your case.
I think that Nathan makes some good points, but I think that the fans are absolutely right in terms of the team that you most want to see, which is Chicago. And here's why. I think, honestly, that FC Cincinnati matches up the best against Chicago or Columbus because they're both teams who want to try to play with the ball, but also are not that good at it right now. But when I talk about a team that plays tight because they're always worried that things are going to go south, like the last thing I want to do is put these guys into an Eastern Conference where if you give up a single goal, the whole thing could go to crap. Or if you're up 2, people could start chewing their nails. And, all of us, I think, have been in TQL when things have started to go a little bit south, and the way that the Bailey turns on the refs and like everything, the whole energy in that place plummets. And I think the players can feel that. And I'm not sure they're all that mentally tough. So I would say Chicago, but then I agree completely with Nathan on terms of the team you least want to play is absolutely Orlando. I think Orlando is a bad matchup for FC Cincinnati because they neither completely sit back nor really open up and play. They have that balance that I'm talking about, which means FC Cincinnati, if they really open up and play, they might score a goal, but they're definitely going to give up chances. And if they just shut up shot, they're playing to a 0-0 draw probably. So it's a bad matchup for FC Cincinnati. I think that FCC does have the talent to win those games. I don't think Orlando's attacking talent is nearly as good as FCC's, and I think the defense is probably just about equal. So you would think on paper FCC should win, but I just think it's the worst matchup.
Yeah. Jose does make a good point there too. Chicago, sometimes the playoffs are about having a hot hand. Chicago, right, is heating up. I mean, Nashville did just win an Open Cup, though. It's not like they've been dead in the water, right? I mean, they've had that on their minds, but they have clinched a Champions Cup spot as well there with that. So they do have things to play for on the horizon.
Who said it in our chat that Nashville won the US Open Cup because nobody better than them was playing? Is that what it was? Like, that doesn't scare me, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't scare me right now. I think you're right on. Orlando is the team I would least want to see, just because regardless of their team and their balance, they come to TQL ready to play soccer. And they've spoiled us this year by taking away, getting a goal there at the end, ruining that 3-point win. Was it 2 years ago? The Supporter Shield run kept us from being undefeated at home. Is that right? They stole that away from us at the end. Like, I don't want Orlando coming into TQL and taking anything else away from Cincinnati. They spoil everything for us when they come to TQL. Now, maybe that's a reason, like, bring it on. Let's do it. I want to see Cincinnati play Columbus for all the reasons y'all mentioned. Like, they haven't won. They won 2 games since July 12th. They beat FC Cincinnati 4-2 on July 12th. They beat DC United the next week, July 19th. And then they didn't win another Major League Soccer game until September 18th, I believe it was, and still have not won another MLS game since then. There was some Leagues Cup success they had in there, but not another MLS win. 2 games in however many months that is, back to July, right? Does not scare me. The only reason I would not want to play Columbus is even if Cincinnati pulls out the win, 2 straight games, they sweep them. Everybody in Columbus can say, we didn't have Diego Rossi. We weren't at our best. You beat our B team, whatever it is, right? Like, that's what's going to happen. But I would still love to put Columbus out in the first round.
Doesn't matter if you got a star above the crest. Doesn't matter.
I guess not. So Orlando, we don't want to see Orlando. We could toss up Columbus, Chicago. I will say this preseason, I said then that I thought Chicago was going to be the biggest challenge for FC Cincinnati down the stretch because of the way they played. I didn't believe it would come to that in the playoffs, that we might see Chicago there, but you're right. They're getting hot. I still think Cincinnati has the better chance against Chicago over Orlando. Nashville, I don't know. We've taken it to them twice, but can we do it a third time? I don't know. Chicago, we did too. But we'll see what happens. We got 2 weeks till decision day, and then we'll see how it all shakes out. Who's going to come into TQL and be sent home from TQL with the loss, right, guys? Yeah. All right. Hey, if you're interested in the stuff that we do here, you'd like to support us here at Cincinnati Soccer Talk, from the Monday night show to Jersey Swap, which we've got a special episode of Jersey Swap coming up. We'll tell you more about in a few days. And all the stuff we're putting out on YouTube and social media. If you'd like to get behind that, we just encourage you to visit us at CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/support. And you can join us over on Patreon that way. We'd love to hear from you as well. Feedback at CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. We do love the questions that come in. We do love the feedback that comes in, and we do love to respond to those and even put them up here on the show. So let us know what you think. Drop us a note, drop a comment here on YouTube, on Facebook, wherever you happen to be watching or listening throughout the week. And thanks for listening. Guys, let's get into our final thoughts here to wrap up this episode of Cincinnati Soccer Talk. Coach, we'll go with you.
Yeah, thanks. My final thought is I talked about this team not having balance, offensive, defense, but one thing I have been loving this year, especially late after the secondary transfer window, is this team's balance in terms of the veterans and the youngsters. I love that this team has real veterans, like grizzled veterans like Powell and Anunga and Kai Kamara. Teenage as a veteran. I'd throw a Vander in there, and then I'm going to throw Lucas Engel in there because he's only 26. But he looks fully 40 or 45, so he counts. And I just had to get that dig in, because dude, like, just let the hair go. Just let it go. I mean, it's not that bad. Be a Brad Smith out there. We need another one. But then also
Brad Smith, by the way, sorry, we don't need to go there.
Injured. But we also have some real youngsters contributing, like genuine kids like Ender and Gidi and Jabari, and even Kevin Tanke is only 24. Brenner, I think, is 25, like youngsters. Orishano is 25. So I think it's just a really good balance. And you look at the future of this team, even here when the team is finishing second in the East and has a real shot at an MLS Cup, but you also, it doesn't look like a team that is like on the edge of not being able to compete. There's only a couple like really key contributors like Matt Miazga that are like getting up there in age that you're wondering if we should bring them back or if they're going to continue to contribute. All of the other really key contributors are young, but there's a good mix, and I've just been really enjoying that this season.
Dato Valenzuela getting good minutes. Oh wait, no, not
key
now.
Performer for
he's been a critical role for FCC2.
Yes, he has been for sure. So he was just my pick as breakout player of the year, and he's not even there end of the season. So I just had to get that in there. Thanks, Coach, for that take. That's a good thought there. Nathan, final thought, man.
Yeah, speaking of FC Cincinnati 2, that the draw is Thursday, right? It's likely that they get New York or Philly. Pray that they get New England or Chattanooga if you're watching. You don't want to play that Red Bull 2 team, and you don't want to play that Philly 2 team. But beyond that, final thought, we played in Champions Cup. We saw how that fell out, right? We played in Leagues Cup, right? The 2 team played in Open Cup, right? Philly just beat us by the hair of their chinny chin chin, right, for the Supporters Shield, right? And we've all come up short on these, right? And this team has a last chance going into the final week of the season to achieve what this fan base has as set as the measure of success for this group at the beginning of the season. We've talked about on this podcast. Other shows have talked about this. The goal for this season is hardware. Doesn't matter what that looks like, but there's now only one left, and that's the big one. That's MLS Cup, right? So boys, get healthy, get after it, get a star on your chest. We believe in you guys, and get after it with this last fixture with Montreal.
Yeah, Nathan, good take there. Thanks for being on the show tonight, man. It's good to have you back. The three of us always enjoyed these shows. I want to follow up my final thought after your final thought here with this idea that I've got a lot of friends that talk about, because of a certain other team in Cincinnati, you talk about a team is just one injury away from having a successful season to a horribly horrendous season. The Cincinnati Bengals, might fit that category right now. But here's the thing. FC Cincinnati has faced significant adversity with injuries this season. Like in the past 2 years, actually, right? Do you remember like this season when Matt Miazga was coming back from a season-ending injury last year and it took him a while to get back? Do you remember this season when Nick Hagglund went out with broken ribs and is back playing? Like, that seems so long ago, right? And not to mention Kubo and Obi, who have missed significant moments, significant stretches of the season with injury, right? These guys are coming back now, though. The thing is, we've brought in some pieces in Samuel Guidi and Ender Echenike and Marzu that we haven't talked much about tonight at all, who have been able to fill these roles. And so these guys are not just coming back healthy, given a starting spot back. Like, they're having to compete for that spot because of the way the guys that have been brought in have been playing and producing. And so I'm excited for that. The competition that is being built. I don't love the injury, but I do love the space it's created for guys to get in and develop. And here we go. Like, we faced the adversity. Guys are coming back healthy. We got a few battle scars this last week in New York, but I think we'll get past that. We've knocked this team all season for these 1-goal wins, but look, we are poised. We're ready for tight matches come postseason. Let's go FC Cincinnati. Let's win the MLS Cup. Here we go. By 1-goal wins all the way. Jose, here we go. Thanks for listening to this episode of Cincinnati Soccer Talk. We will see you next week.